May 21st, Election Day here in Auburn. Polls are open until 8 p.m. And be sure to get out and vote. The Senator and I will be discussing things representing the current budget that they're working on in Boston. And with the budget approaching, is there anything that you can share with us today?
Yeah, we'll be going into full debate on the budget tomorrow. And since last Wednesday when the budget was released, we've had the opportunity to file amendments, reach out to different groups, and we've been contacted by different groups and advocates about trying to make changes to the budget that was released. And between Wednesday and Friday, 3 p.m. Friday, all the senators were filing their amendments. I think I had 29 amendments as of 3 o'clock Friday that I filed. That's not counting the amendments I'm going to be co-sponsoring. So I think it's a pretty diverse package of amendments that I'll be looking at. 9 of them deal with higher education, some are some business related, some are some public safety, homeland security type amendments. But full-blown debate starts tomorrow. And as you may know, last month, the House Representatives Committee on the Committee on Ways and Means, set forth their budget proposal, and the House voted on their budget. Again, I've been speaking with different advocates concerning their budget and the difference between ours and theirs, and there are some issues that we have concerns with, but we're going to be trying to move ahead with. And I think, again, the debate starts tomorrow. The full debate starts tomorrow, so that's when all the fun begins.
Well, the state's budget gap has declined in each of the past 6 years since the recent economic recession. The Commonwealth still faces a $1.292 billion budget gap in fiscal year 2014. The Senate Ways and Means budget proposal builds on the FY13 work to reduce the state's structural deficit while increasing support for core areas of government such as education, local aid, housing, mental health, and elder affairs.
The budget proposal closes a $1.3 billion budget gap with sustainable new tax revenues, including $430 million generated through the recent transportation bill, by using $350 million from the rainy day fund, which will leave a projected fiscal year 2014 rainy day fund balance of more than $1.3 billion, $277 million in one-time solutions, and more than $200 million in other ongoing revenue sources and saving initiatives. The Senate Ways and Means budget proposal includes $33.92 billion in spending, an increase of $1.428 billion over the estimated fiscal 13 spending.
Similar to the House budget, the Ways and Means budget relies on $430 million in revenues related to the transportation finance framework, such as an increase to the tobacco tax and an increase to the state's gas tax, which was passed by both the House and the Senate last month. The proposal also relies on $627 million in one-time revenue sources. Notable one-time revenue sources include $85 million from the gaming license revenues, $107 million from additional savings, and sales of state assets and trust fund sweeps.
Although the Senate Ways and Means proposal spends far less than the governor's proposal, it reflects a commitment to fund Senate priorities and core government services. The proposal includes full funding for the special education, which you may hear people refer to as SPED, Special Education Circuit Breaker, and increases Chapter 70 funding and the charter school reimbursements.
The proposal invests $19.6 million in new funding for sustainable housing, $6.2 million to eliminate the elder home care wait list, and $15 million to expand access to subsidized childcare. Furthermore, the proposal supports funding to implement required provisions of the Federal Affordable Care Act and to avoid mass health cuts, meeting state obligations for Chapter 257 and the CBA costs, and provides sufficient funding for the trial courts and state police.
To support regional school transportation costs, the Ways and Means proposal includes $49.5 million for regional school transportation and, for the first time, a $3 million allocation for non-resident vocational student transportation. Just to explain that a little bit, we all know we have our public school, K through 12 system, and then we have the regional vocational schools. But the way it works is if at the K through 12 school or the vocational school, if a student wants to take a certain curriculum that's not offered at the two schools, and there's another school that's available outside of the school district, the town or the school district is obligated to pay those transportation costs. So what this is going to do for the first time is we are going to provide the funding to cover the costs so that the school districts don't have to incur that added expense. In addition to the local aid increases, Senate Ways and Means proposal budget prioritizes early education funding, including $15 million for the preschool initiative to remove additional children from the wait list. However, I am disappointed in the Ways and Means Committee for not including the Child Care Rate Reserve, which supports increasing compensation for our early childhood educators in this proposal. Over the last several years, we have actually increased the requirements, the educational requirements for our early educators. These are the teachers that we are dropping our children off with to take care of during the day, to teach. It's not babysitting services. These are teachers that provide educational services, and the average pay that for these teachers is roughly $23,000 to $25,000, and they haven't received a pay increase in 6 years. So we all know we've all felt the added costs to our budgets, to our incomes. Healthcare costs, is the cost of living going up, and to have someone who we're entrusting to take care of our children being paid such a low income, I find a little outrageous. And I did try to get support for funding to get approximately 2 to 3% increase for the salary reserve, which compensates for these teachers' salaries.
During the Senate budget debate, you'll be fighting to have an amendment included in the final state budget to address the need for child care rate reserves.
As a chairman of the Senate Committee on Higher Education, I am also pleased that the Ways and Means Committee prioritized funding higher education in the Commonwealth. The proposal includes tuition retention for the University of Massachusetts campuses and adds $2.4 million in new funding for scholarships, which will provide new or increased financial support for close to 2,000 students. To support families in our communities, the Ways and Means proposal has added $2.3 million in funding to the RAF program, which will help more than 3,100 families maintain housing.
The proposal continues the Senate commitment to elder and veteran services. The proposal includes an additional support of $10.5 million for grants to the Council on Aging, increasing support to $8 per elder, making it the highest level of state support for councils on aging. The proposal includes a 5% funding increase to veterans outreach centers and veterans homeless shelters, and $125,000 for the Train Vets to Treat Vets program, which helps recently returned veterans become behavioral health counselors.
Another amendment that I filed Friday is in regards to the Veterans Inc. building on Grove Street in Worcester. It's one of the largest veteran services programs that we have in the Commonwealth, and it's been very successful. Well, it's part of the old armory, and one half of the building, when you first get to Salisbury Street, the intersection, is currently owned by the National Guard. And the other half, which they basically just use for store archiving documents, it's their archiving building. So we've been working with Veterans Inc. and the National Guard to facilitate the expansion of the Veterans Inc. into that building, having the National Guard relocate their documents and all the items that they have archived. So they're in the process of doing that now to Woburn, moving those items to Woburn. Right now it looks positive that it should be able to get an amendment to the Senate budget allowing Veterans Inc. to utilize that section of the building. They'd be responsible for all the upkeep, the maintenance of the building, but it would facilitate the expansion of veteran services for all Central Mass, which we all know with more veterans coming home, and this is male and female veterans now coming home, there's going to be a need for additional services for our veterans. So hopefully this will, by the end of the budget debate, we'll have some additional veteran services also in Worcester. I've also been a strong supporter for funding for our youth job programs since coming to the Senate, which is why I am pleased that the Ways and Means proposal includes $8 million to support youth at-risk summer jobs programs. Now that the Senate budget has been released, the members of the Senate, as I said earlier, we've all been reviewing the budget proposal that's been presented by Ways and Means, and we're all trying to, I guess, to get additional revenues or try to tweak the budget in ways that we hopefully will allow us to pursue certain priorities that we want to try to accomplish by the end of the proposal.
After the budget is reviewed, amendments will be proposed. Following the filing of the amendments, the Senate will vote on the budget, which will take place this week. Once the Senate votes on the budget, a conference committee between the House and the Senate will come together to agree on the differences between the two budgets before it can be sent to Governor Deval Patrick to sign into law.
The conference committee, and we'll address this probably by our next show, we'll probably still be waiting for the conference committee report to come out, but the way the conference committee is set up is each branch, the Senate and the House, has 3 members. It's the chairman of Ways and Means, the vice chair, and then someone from the minority, the ranking person from the minority party. So that's for each branch. So those 6 individuals will sit down and they will basically work out the differences between the 2 budgets, and that's the budget then that comes back to the House that you have to vote up or down with. There's no filing amendments. You vote the package as is, and then that gets sent off to the governor. And I can assure you that I will continue to advocate for the 2nd Worcester District and be a strong voice during the Senate budget debate to ensure that the programs that benefit our district will continue to be supported.
The Commonwealth has been committed to increasing access to freight line services and has created a program to assist in granting rail access. Can you speak to us a little about this?
Yeah, on Wednesday, May 1st, the Lieutenant Governor, Timothy Murray, MassDOT Secretary and CEO Richard Davey, and local officials announced this year's Industrial Rail Access Program. Recipients operating in Massachusetts in a visit to Worcester, improvements to the Commonwealth's freight rail network will help to ensure our continued economic success. These recipients should help to attract businesses and jobs to Massachusetts. By investing in these projects, we are upgrading the Commonwealth's freight rail network, which will not only attract new businesses and jobs, but also promote a more efficient transportation of goods and services.
The Mass DOT Industrial Rail Access Program was created through the 2012 Transportation Bond Bill to provide grants to the railroads, rail shippers, and municipalities who identify a public benefit that will be gained through the improved use of the rail transportation network, or that will facilitate economic growth through access to rail assets within the Commonwealth. Recently, you had the opportunity to speak at a public safety event in Boston. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, on Thursday, May 9th, I had the opportunity to speak at the annual Smart 911 Summit that was held this year in Boston. The event brought together emergency communications leaders from across the country to discuss best practices and innovative technologies.
This year's summit focused on lessons learned from some of the major events of the past year, including the Sandy Hook Elementary shootings and the Boston Marathon bombing. As the Senate Vice Chairman of the Committee on Public Safety and Homeland Security, and as a former law enforcement officer, you understood the importance of the public safety officials coming together to discuss lessons learned in past tragedies to better prepare ourselves to prevent further incidents.
We always say communication is the key, but really getting together after these tragedies is really what helps us move forward so that we can find remedies to solutions of problems that may have come up during these crises that you never anticipate. You can have the best planning, the best strategy that you think to address an area, to address a certain issue, but there's always going to be something that comes up that you just can't anticipate. You can never anticipate all the circumstances that move forward, but it's having the plans in place that if something does come up, you can get around those difficulties.
That about wraps it up today. I want to remind everyone that the next forum will be on the third Tuesday in June. And again, I want to remind everyone that it's Election Day here in Auburn. And be sure to get out and vote. The polls are open until 8 p.m.
And two issues: you have selectmen's race, and you've got to vote for your middle school on the ballot. So please get out there and support your kids, your students, and their families, and go cast a vote. And other than that, thank you. I wish everyone a good Memorial Day weekend, and thank our veterans and everything that they've done for us.
Thank you very much.